3. There's nothing like starting all over from the beginning. Apparently, the first time around looked really, really bad. So I apologize. Hopefully, you guys come on. If you're not coming on the live, you'll watch it on the replay. But let's start it. So today, we're talking about the big myth in heart disease, right? And I'm sure that you heard a million times that cholesterol is bad, right? And that your entire mission in life is to lower your cholesterol. Otherwise, you're going to get a heart attack, right? But what if I told you that 75% of people who end up in the hospital with a heart attack have normal cholesterol levels? That's a head scratcher, isn't it? 75% of people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. But it doesn't make sense, right? Because you're constantly being told that cholesterol is going to give you a heart attack. How are all these people getting heart attacks if they have normal cholesterol? What's going on? And if cholesterol is not the culprit, then what's driving heart disease? Well, that's the question we're going to answer today. What's really causing heart disease if it's not cholesterol? So, starting this part again. If you're watching us live, this time we look better. Drop the word live, and I'm sorry for those technical difficulties, but we're going to catch up now where we are. Let us know you're here. It's a great place to ask questions. If you're watching us on replay, let us know by dropping the word replay. Of course, if you're watching YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on the podcast, I am wearing an orange sweatshirt. And otherwise, just listen to the sound of my voice. And of course, if you aren't already following us on Instagram or TikTok, what are you waiting for? So let's start this, okay? Let's talk about cholesterol because before we even get into it, I need to make sure you guys understand. I always start with definitions because I want you guys to really own the information and understand what you're talking about. So, most of the advice you get about your heart is about cholesterol. So, we need to understand what cholesterol even is. We measure it and we talk about it and we're scared of it. But what is it? So, cholesterol is something that is naturally made in your body. It's a waxy, fat like substance that's found in all the cells of your body. Now, it's not inherently bad. In fact, our bodies need cholesterol in so many ways. Listen to the list of things that cholesterol does in your body. First of all, it makes bile, and bile helps us digest fats. If you didn't have cholesterol, you wouldn't be able to digest fats. Cholesterol keeps your cell walls, your membranes strong, allowing your cells to function properly. Without cholesterol, cell membranes would be too rigid and could not work well. Cholesterol is the building blocks for hormones in your bodies. It makes cortisol, aldosterone, sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. No cholesterol, no hormones. Vitamin D. Cholesterol is needed to produce vitamin D. Thyroid hormones. You need cholesterol. Your brains depend heavily on cholesterol. Extremely low cholesterol levels have been tied to low cognition, mood disorders. It's crucial for learning. Nerve function. You need cholesterol to make nerve fibers. And cholesterol acts as an antioxidant. It protects you from oxidative damage caused by free radicals. If you don't know what those words mean, feel free to look it up on my TikTok. Immune function. Cholesterol is involved in the immune system. Cell growth and repair. You need cholesterol for cell growth and repair. So cholesterol is an important part of your life. It's a necessary part of your life. It's not evil. But we do need the right amount. And more importantly, we need it in the right place. So let's talk about how cholesterol travels to really understand this. Cholesterol itself cannot travel in the bloodstream. It needs to be carried by boats. These boats are called lipoproteins. And there are different kinds of lipoproteins, but let's just focus on the three that we hear about all the time. You have HDL, LDL, and VLDL. High density lipoprotein, low density lipoprotein, and very low density. So the HDL is the high density, what people call the good cholesterol. It's not really cholesterol, it's a boat filled with cholesterol and protein. The reason it's called high density is because it has more protein and less cholesterol. This boat, this HDL, goes in one direction. Its job is to go around, find excess cholesterol around the body, bring it back to the liver, and get it excreted out. It's a search and rescue boat, and it brings back any excess cholesterol back home so that it doesn't hang out in your arteries. And we'll talk more about that in a second. The HDL boat also has anti-inflammatory properties, which can help keep your blood vessels healthy. This is why we always say the HDL is your good cholesterol. It's good for your heart. The next boat we're going to talk about is the LDL, the low density lipoprotein. It's called low density because it has more cholesterol and less protein compared to the HDL. It's often called the bad cholesterol. But remember, it's not actually the cholesterol, it's just the boat it travels in. And this boat goes in the opposite direction. It carries cholesterol from your liver, where it's made, to the cells in your body, because remember, those cells need it. But sometimes it kind of spills its load, okay? It creates these little oil spills. And we don't want those oil spills because they are going to mess up the artery walls, which we'll talk about. And lastly, there's the VLDL, the very low density lipoprotein. This boat comes from your liver and mainly carries triglycerides, which is another kind of fat. VLDLs transport these triglycerides, and again, they can create these oil spills, and that becomes a problem because they turn into LDL, and we already know LDL is a little problematic. So, by the way, quick aside on triglycerides, because we talk about those when we talk about cholesterol. These are a type of fat found in your body, and they're like these tiny power packets that your body saves for later, which is good if you need it. But the problem is, if you eat more food than your body needs, you actually make too many of these little packets, and now you have too much stored fat cells all around. And this is not good for it to be circulating around your body because it's connected to heart disease. Okay, let's back on track. I'm still talking about cholesterol, right? What's the big reveal? You said that heart disease is not about cholesterol, but we're so many minutes in and I'm still talking about cholesterol, right? So what's the myth here? I promise I'm getting there, but you still need a little bit more on how this thing works so that I can kind of tell you where the twist is. But by now you should have a sense. If you take a look at your cholesterol panel, you should have an understanding of what it is. So when you have a chance, go pull up your last set of labs, your cholesterol test, and you can understand now what this HDL and LDL, right? So you have this total cholesterol. That's the combined value of all the cholesterol in your blood. It doesn't matter which boat it's on. It gives you this total number. Then you have the HDL. That's the cholesterol that's sitting in that search and rescue one. It helps clear out the bad cholesterol from your bloodstream. You have the LDL, which is the bad boat with more of the cholesterol we don't want. It's going in the other direction. And then you have the triglycerides, which is your fat packets, right? So when we start interpreting these numbers, we have a better sense of what kind of cholesterol we have. Again, so far I just explained in detail all this cholesterol, but I didn't explain to you why people are worried about cholesterol in the arteries to begin with. I just sat here and told you we need it and how good it is for us. And then I told you what boats they travel on. And then I told you how we're counting them. But what is so concerning about these cholesterols? Why do we care if we have these oil spills, right? And the reason we care about these oil spills is because these oil spills can cause plaques. And plaque is like a buildup or a block within your artery, and it's made up of fat and cholesterol and other stuff. And over time, too much of this buildup on the wall makes it harder for your blood to flow freely, right? It's like a pipe. Now we have this gunk on the side of the wall, and it can cause the walls to harden. And now you have these pieces on the pipe. It's not going to be good for flow. And what's worse is sometimes these pieces of plaque break off and travel. It could travel to your heart. That's a heart attack. It could travel to your brain. That's a stroke. And again, that's what we're worried about when we're talking about cholesterol and plaque. So again, you might be saying, sounds now like you're saying cholesterol is pretty dangerous. You just said it was pretty good. Now you said it was a myth. Where's the myth? The myth comes in is that these plaques don't just form because you have cholesterol. If you just had cholesterol lying around, that's not what's dangerous. You need something else, something that most medical providers don't talk about to turn this cholesterol to become dangerous. And that something is inflammation. Without inflammation, cholesterol just by itself is actually not dangerous. So this is how it works. And now you see why I had to give you this whole preamble. This is how it works. First of all, the reason you even have plaque in the first place, the reason why this oil spill becomes plaque is because you first have to have an injury on the arterial wall, on the artery wall. So inflammation will cause that injury. So you have inflammation running around. It creates a little nick in that wall. Now, cholesterol, VLDL, because it's traveling right towards the cell, is going to build up in that nick. So now you have this LDL and VLDL that's just trapped in this little hole in the pipes. Now, inflammation doesn't stop there. It didn't just create the injury. Now the inflammation takes this little plaque like spackle on a wall, and it makes it dangerous because this inflammation oxidizes it. Think of it like an apple slice turning brown or rusting. So now you have plaque and it's browned, it's rusted over. And that's the bad news for your arteries, not just the cholesterol. It's the inflammatory process around the cholesterol. Okay, so just to say it again, you have this LDL, it gets trapped in the artery wall. And then inflammation is what changes it into something more dangerous. And now you have this mix of cholesterol, brown LDL, white blood cells that's coming to the area, and it gets bigger and bigger, that the plaque gets bigger. And as the plaque grows, guess what else grows? Inflammation gets worse, making the plaque bulge further. And it can bulge into the pathway, right? So think of a pipe, and now you have this gunk, and it's making flow really hard. And the most dangerous part is now this hard plaque can rupture, it could break open, it could travel to the heart or the brain, and it can cause blockage somewhere else. So it's not just about the cholesterol or the amount, it's the process of oxidation and inflammation which causes the concern. Cholesterol is only part of the picture. And this is why you can have one person here with high cholesterol but zero inflammation on the one side, high cholesterol but no inflammation. And on this side, have a person with normal cholesterol but high inflammation. Who do you think has the higher cardio risk? I'm hoping that you understand by now that the higher cardio risk is the person with higher inflammation, even if their cholesterol is normal. This is why, going back to the beginning of the episode, is why we said so many people have heart attacks and they actually have normal cholesterol, because the issue is inflammation. So telling people to just reduce cholesterol or just take meds to just reduce cholesterol without having the oxidation and inflammation conversation is not the way to go. In fact, it still leaves you at risk for heart disease. This is why, going back to that cholesterol panel, a really good comprehensive cholesterol panel doesn't just give you a count of how much, HDL and LDL you have. It starts adding other things to the panel, something called HSCRP, homocysteine, ferritin levels. Now, these things don't sound like cholesterol, and that's because they're not. They're inflammatory markers. So a really good cholesterol panel will give you a count, and then will also show you how much inflammation you have in your body, because elevated inflammatory markers are associated with increased risk of heart attack and stroke. That's what we are talking about. So when we're talking about heart disease, what we need to understand that the real issue is inflammation. Okay? The inflammation causes the damage, bringing a whole bunch of cells, including cholesterol, to the area to try to seal the damage. And then the inflammation rusts these plaques in a process called oxidation. And now you have these terrible plaques that can rupture and clot. So once we recognize that the role of inflammation, not just the role of cholesterol, is where we have to focus, then we turn our therapy not just to cholesterol, but also to reducing inflammation. So what's causing this inflammation, this chronic inflammation? What's happening in my body or in your body that's causing inflammation? So let's talk about common causes of inflammation. Number one, obesity. Obesity is associated with chronic inflammation. The adipose tissue, the fat tissue, produces inflammatory molecules called adipokines. Okay, did I say it right? Maybe yes, maybe no, but they are fat cells that produce inflammation. Insulin resistance, high blood pressure, diabetes, all cause constant inflammation. Autoimmune conditions, if you're walking around with Hashimoto's, lupus, any type of autoimmune issue, that's inflammatory, especially if you're still dealing with flares and you haven't figured out how to calm down the flares. Chronic disease, any chronic disease that you have, even if you're well managed, it's causing inflammation. So even if you say, hey, I'm taking, my medication, a chronic disease causes inflammation. You really want to do everything you can to get to the root cause. Chronic infections, persistent, viral, bacterial, fungal. This is why we want to check our teeth, our gums, make sure you don't have gingivitis, check for Lyme, check for H. pylori, because walking around with an infection, even if it's not disrupting your daily living, is causing inflammation. Environmental toxins. Are you exposed to mold, heavy metals? Chronic inflammation. Stress. This is why they say stress causes heart attacks, because chronic stress increases inflammation, right? It doesn't create the clots, but increases inflammation, which then takes that cholesterol that creates the clots. Poor diet, of course, you already know by now. If you watched me at all, you already know processed foods is inflammatory. Standard American diet, inflammatory. Lack of physical activity. If you have a sedentary lifestyle on Zooms all day, never getting up, chronic inflammation. You need that regular physical activity. If you're smoking, I'm not really sure who's smoking in 2023, but if you're smoking, inflammation. I have nothing else to say about that. Unhealthy gut microbiome, right? If your gut microbiome is a hot mess, if you don't know exactly what that is, that's okay. Welcome to the Vortex. Check out one of my episodes on the microbiome. And sleep deficiency. I've said it a million times. I don't care how much gluten-free ice you are eating. If you're not sleeping, your health is not on point. It causes inflammation. So inflammation is where we need to focus. Now, conventional medicine really focuses on statin drugs, and we can't, that's how it's heart disease and cholesterol is managed. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not telling you to stop taking medication. I would never tell you to stop taking medication. So please never think that I told you to stop taking medication. I just want to give you an expanded picture of what's going on. The statin drugs are super focused on reducing the LDL. They also mildly increase the HDL and lower triglycerides. And this is awesome. They're great. You take it, your numbers go down. But remember everything we just talked about. If you're just focusing on the numbers, you're only focusing on part of the picture. You have to also focus on the things that cause inflammation. And of course, statins have side effects. They can cause muscle pain, liver enzymes can go up, GI issues, increased blood sugar, and studies have shown that it can cause memory issues. So, of course, I'm not telling you not to take them. Just have an awareness that that's not the whole story. To really take control of heart disease, you have to take control of your inflammation. There's just no shortcuts. You have to get chronic issues under control, the microbiome, the sleep, the movement, all of it. Okay, there's no shortcuts. And of course, it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't talk to you about some supplements, because you guys love supplements and I'm here for it. So let's talk about supplements. The most commonly known supplement regarding cholesterol is something called red yeast rice. Red yeast rice is really cool. It's a supplement that's been used for centuries in traditional Chinese medicine. It's basically made from fermenting rice with a type of yeast, and then it creates this compound called monocolins. And monocolin K has been so well studied. In fact, this is pretty cool. The very first statin was made to mimic this substance in red yeast rice. It naturally lowers LDL. So red yeast rice is like a natural statin that helps lower that LDL. Now remember, I am not telling you it is as effective as a statin. Statins are certainly stronger and can have a more impactful, effect on your cholesterol. So I am not telling you to self-medicate or to switch. Just giving you information here. But the real deal in supplements is, as we discussed, is about controlling inflammation, right? So the red yeast rice is great. It lowers the cholesterol, focuses on the numbers. It can help us along. But you want to also use supplements to reduce inflammation, along with all the lifestyle changes that you have to make. Remember, supplements are supplemental. So in addition, whether you're taking your statins or your red yeast rice, you can add these along. CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, natural substance produced by your body, helps create energy, amazing for your mitochondria, but it also really, really helps your heart. And CoQ10 also helps protect yourself from damage, and it lowers inflammation. So you really want that CoQ10 in there. Other things for inflammation, omega-3 fatty acids. Of course, you can get it by eating salmon and other good seafood, but if not, take a supplement because they reduce inflammation and improve a whole bunch of cardiovascular risk factors. Turmeric, curcumin. It is a spice added to your food, super anti-inflammatory. Green tea extract. Green tea extract has this really cool compound in it called EGCG. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. Drink it, get powder, put it in your smoothie, do what you got to do, get it in there. There's resveratrol found in red wine. Not telling you to go drink wine, just telling you it's in there. It's also found in grapes. Antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. I put it in my smoothie every single day. And quercetin. Quercetin is found in fruits, vegetables. Of course, it's also a supplement, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. So, recap. Cholesterol is just one part of the heart disease picture. Focusing only on the numbers does not make sense. Remember that 75% of people who end up in the emergency room with a heart attack have normal cholesterol. And the reason they have these heart attacks is inflammation. Focusing on the numbers without focusing on inflammation is not the answer and will not get you out of risk. To really reduce your risk of heart attack, you must find the source of inflammation in your body and remove it. Sometimes it's as simple as fixing your gut and your sleep, and sometimes it's about removing toxic exposure and chronic issues, and maybe you need a little bit more help. Either way, you have to get to the root cause and remove it. So if you want to work with me and my team, you can reach us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Threads at The New Method. And don't forget, new is spelled with a K because you always knew there was a better way. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you guys soon.